into what they call the spies of Ojukwu. Ojukwu invited Banjo to a meeting in Enugu, ostensibly to hear him out and probably to implicate him. Before that time, by the way, I'm reading the book Colonel Victor Banjo, A Revolutionary Betrayed by Niyi Aborishade. Ojukwu invited Banjo to a meeting in Enugu, ostensibly to hear him out and probably to implicate him. Before that time, Ojukwu had raised some spies whose duties were to just visit some commanders at the war front and secretly interview them on the state of things. Anyone who expressed himself against the commander-in-chief on his poor handling of the war and tactics was penned down as a saboteur. It says Achuzia was one of Ojukwu's favorite spies. So if for instance somebody say we're all fighting and somebody begins to complain about I don't like I don't like how this or they do this, like I don't like the tactics of Ojukwu, you are a sabo. Straight up. If you read the book by Shoyinka, you would understand why it should be very easy to have Victor Banjo and Philip Alale be declared as sabo. Philip, by the way, was Ojukwu's in-law. He killed him. In-law or not, Ojukwu still killed him. And one of the reasons I mentioned the book by Shoyinka, the book is called You Must Set Forth at Dawn. In that book, Shoyinka talked about how Philip was talking about the strategy and the ideology behind the old secession movement and how he didn't really like the way Ojukwu was moving. And Victor Banjo also told, let me read it so that it won't be like I'm just talking. 1 second. Victor Banjo also mentioned the issue with the way it was put together. 1 second. So let me read something to you. Speaking of Victor Banjo, I'm reading the book You Must Set Forth at Dawn by Wole Soyinka. A stream of indignation followed. Okay. This is the part that we're looking for here. For the leader of the Biafran secession, Victor Banjo had even harsher words. If Odumegwu Ojukwu had displayed true leadership, the secession, he insisted, would have never taken place. That's from Victor Banjo. That's what he said to Soyinka. Let me read to you what Philip Alale now says. It says Philip Alale was a complete contrast to Banjo, restless and excitable. Alale spoke agitatedly and volubly of the lack of ideological grounding in the conflict, slashing the air right and left as he outlined the cleansing that was needed for the deceased polity called Nigeria. For him also, Ojukwu was not the answer to the threat of northern domination in Nigerian politics. What was desperately needed was a third force, though he did not actually use the expression. Still, his prescription was for a new entrant that would neutralize the two combatants. It was Philip Alale, however, who was fated to be neutralized at the firing stake in Biafra, convicted of treason against Ojukwu's government, together with Banjo and 2 others. So even from Soyinka's book, you know that these guys never really badun Ojukwu like that. So it's not like they developed this idea of toppling his government or whatever. They just never yes, it was Soviet educated, he had socialist views. Thank you, Prof. He had socialist views. Alale was more ideologically driven. And by the way, when they made him a major in the Biafran army, it wasn't so much because he could carry gun, it was because he was an orator. And I think that was Philip Effiong's idea, because he could rouse people, he could get you to fight. When people were down, he could boost their morale. So, it was needed, essentially. So the idea of, what you should know about Ojukwu is that he was a very insecure person. A very, very insecure person. But, and that, I think was one of the things that affected the way he dealt with everything. He suspected everyone. Maybe Victor Banjo should have been like that. Perhaps he would not have died the way he did. He suspected everyone, and then even introduced spies into the army. So anyone who expressed himself against the commander-in-chief on his poor handling of the war and tactics was penned down as a saboteur. Allegedly, Colonel Achuzia was one of Ojukwu's favorite spies. According to Philip Effiong, it got to a stage when even advice must be carefully given lest one was labeled as saboteur. Ojukwu spies were everywhere. If his most senior officer could express a fear like this, we wonder what was going on in the minds of other junior officers. It meant Ojukwu could no longer be told the truth or given sound advice, since that person might be labeled as a saboteur. By the way, this same idea you find in the book by Nebo Graham Douglas. He also mentioned how you couldn't speak, and even when you spoke, people would look at you a certain way. The same thing is also mentioned in the book by N.U. Akpan, The Struggle for Secession. Just mere countering a particular statement that was made in a council earned him sabo, because people felt like, why would you even say anything against what the supreme commander, the Lord and Savior, Messiah of the heaven and earth inside the land, why would you go against it? So anybody who spoke against him is considered a sabo. By the way, sabo is saboteur. That they call it sabo. So that was the situation at the time. So even Philip Effiong, who was the second in command, also spoke about being careful when you're giving advice. So he says here, it meant Ojukwu could no longer be told the truth or given sound advice, since that person might be labeled a saboteur. What a life, what a leader, what a country. Would the citizens of that country have fared better under such a leader? It is incomprehensible how that kind of a leader would have taken this country forward. No wonder the bid to become an independent nation under him collapsed like a pack of cards. It was therefore easy for officers like Banjo, who was outspoken, to fall into the net of Ojukwu's spies. He, Ojukwu, was fingered by Philip Effiong and an officer next to Ojukwu in his book, The Caged Bird Sang No More. He maintained that Ojukwu's military appreciation was amateurish. Of course it would be amateurish. Who was Ojukwu? Ojukwu got into the army after 6 months. How many months did he do for short service? Ojukwu was not trained like Kini now. Ojukwu did not jack. Very, very lacking in tactics. No, in strategy. By the way, do you notice that there's no difference between this and Obidient movement? I'm just saying. You must not have a contrary view, or else you're a sabo. It's the same mindset. Ojukwu was fingered by Philip Effiong. In his book, by the way, was man next to Ojukwu. In his book, The Caged Bird Sang No More, he maintained that Ojukwu's military appreciation was amateurish. He indulged in debate and seminars while the collapse of Biafra was staring us in the face. No saboteurs could have been more effective. In other words, Ojukwu was responsible for the fall of Biafra and indirectly sabotaged himself. Unfortunately, he needed a scapegoat, and better still, the Yoruba senior officer who stood taller above all the other officers and who was too independent for the Oxford graduate commander-in-chief. Let me repeat what I always say. While, of course, I do not like what happened to him, my question is, what are you looking for amongst these people? Yoruba person. I'm not saying among these people as in among Igbo, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying among people that have this ideology, e.g. Obidient. So when I say among these people, I'm not talking about the ethnic group. They are good Igbo people. I'm saying Igbo people who have the mindset of Ojukwu and Azikiwe. They are more than the normal ones. And they are the ones that populate both IPOB and Obidient movement. My question to you, Yoruba person, is what are you doing amongst them? You cannot blame them for doing what they do. What are you doing there? Whatever they did, they do. Are there individuals who are from the East who don't behave like this? Of course. Of course. But you see, they're the minority. And they're quiet. And they don't talk.